A number of countries have signed now the regional trade agreement with the aim of facilitating the easy movement of mainly goods among states. Now, that has obviously been impacted by COVID-19. Can you talk to us about that?
Thank you. Yes, indeed. COVID-19 has greatly impacted on the global flow of trade, not just in the region, it's globally. And obviously, it is also being felt in our member states in SACU. Now, that has come about, one, as a result of the lockdown measures that have been instituted to try and cap the spread of the virus. And in so doing, then it meant flow of goods have been limited, but also in part because the demand has declined, and also the lockdown measures have also had an impact on the industries in that they were also they've had to limit their production and supply of goods, and that has been limited to essential goods only. So it's various factors that have really affected the flow of goods, but mainly arising from the lockdown measures that have been implemented. So what it means for us, for example, in the SACU region, at the height of the lockdown, we saw the movement and flow of goods really reduced to between 10 to 30%. And that was to be expected. But what we are doing also is to ensure that the movement and flow of essential goods is facilitated at borders, because clearly that is important for us to make sure that in order to fight COVID-19, member states have access to essential goods and from where they are getting them. Particularly for us in the region, a lot of our supplies come from South Africa, and so ensuring that trade is facilitated, but also that the flow of goods, particularly at border crossings, is expedited. As you will be aware, a number of border posts had also been closed down in order to minimize the spread of the virus. And so there are a few borders that are operating, but in that then we are working to ensure that essential goods are expedited.
Now, what will be the long-term consequences of COVID-19 on trade, the way things are going right now?
Well, the way things are going right now, I think it's not just trade, because trade is also a factor of production. We are seeing, for example, inputs for productions not being available because of these lockdown measures. But globally, the estimate is that global trade will reduce from between 13 to 30%. And so that's quite significant. And it's really just a reflection of what is happening now. What is also critical to understand is, I think, the projections in terms of economic growth, which is also linked to trade. We are seeing a serious contraction. On average for us in SACU, we are looking at a 5% contraction on average, but it ranges between 5 and 7% per country. So that is significant, because also what this has done is really disruption, not only in trade, disruption in production processes. Unemployment numbers are rising because of closures of factories. And so it's a whole lot of aspects and factors of our economy that are affected by this pandemic.
Going forward, how do you foresee the member states restructuring their budgets in view of this substantially reduced income, especially Namibia, in this case, that heavily depends on SACU revenues? How do you see us restructuring our monies going forward?
Well, I mean, we've seen already that a lot of resources have been, put into the health sector. And that is really to ensure that the required facilities are in place, but also normal social safety nets in countries. We have seen countries providing grants, for example, and channeling resources towards the addressing the impact on the economy, but also on the welfare of citizens, to ensure that they are also catered for. So for us, we're looking at a reduction in customs revenues in in 2 years from now, certainly as a result of COVID-19. But also what we are looking at is also to ensure that we prioritize the production of value chains, particularly in relation to the health sector. Because what this pandemic has also revealed is that our economies are vulnerable to disruptions in trade, but also that we have really not put much effort into and prioritize the health sector. Yet, with the outbreak of the pandemic, this is the worst affected sector. We have shortages of protective PPEs, for example, and medical supplies. And so we in SACU are looking at having to relook at our industrialization agenda, and more specifically prioritizing the health sector with a view to ensure that some of these basic supplies are at least produced locally. But I must also hasten to say that with the outbreak of the pandemic, we've also seen the private sector responding to that, whereas basic commodities or products such as sanitizers were not produced locally. We are now seeing those being produced. We are seeing masks being produced locally. The efforts that are being made to produce and to empower local companies, including SMEs, to produce face masks, for example, is a good thing. But I think we need to look at the much bigger picture and ensure that at least the industrialization agenda is responsive to this, so that we do not find ourselves in a situation where we are left, wanting in terms of some of these basic and essential products that are needed to fight COVID-19.
So in other words, you agree with people that say that COVID-19 is somewhat of a blessing in disguise, because we have seen, like you've said, innovation or stimulation of innovation locally. We are starting to do things by ourselves now, instead of having to wait for the outside world to come do things for us.
Absolutely, that is the case, and really, it creates opportunities. If I may also just, look at another area for us in terms of our customs modernization program, we've been looking at working towards automation and modernizing our systems. But with the outbreak of COVID-19, it has revealed the urgency for us to even move faster with some of these programs, particularly IT connectivity and automation, which will allow us to even minimize direct contact between traders and customs authorities, which is critical in this case, particularly where we're talking about social distancing. We've had we've been implementing the preferred trader program that allows those complying companies to benefit from a fast-track process of clearance at borders. And already we are using some of these programs to benefit the clearance of goods at borders in relation to COVID-19. So there are certainly areas where opportunities have arisen as a result of COVID-19, but it's for us then to take advantage of those opportunities and really coordinating that at the regional level, because also what this has revealed for us is the need for even greater coordination of efforts to ensure that collaboratively as a region we're able to respond better, because this is a situation where individual countries are not able to do so, but collectively we can certainly respond better.
Pauline Lago, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you and the rest of your team all the best in this very difficult time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.